Hey, what's going on, everybody? Andrew here, back for our build review show. It is Friday, the 13th, spooky of September here, and this is our show where we go over. I bring up users' builds live on stream, giving them tips and advice in regards to contest selection, things they can do differently in their builds to help them achieve higher sim ROIs. We do this show Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern here. And this is our last show of the week. We do have a full list of people to get to today. So it should be a fun show. So looking forward to it. Ready to jump right in. If anybody likes this content, wants to sign up for a future show, all you need to do is drop your DK username in the office hours channel in our Discord server, and I will add you to the queue for a future show here. So let's get SaberSim pulled up. We are going to start off with Interrogator here, asked to review their builds from the Buffalo Miami showdown. So first off, let's start in the contest tab as always. Seeing a lot of low stakes, seeing a lot of single entry and 3 max, pretty solid balance here. So really like what I'm seeing on that front. Let's jump into a build here. And it looks like we can view the quarter jukebox here. So why don't we start with that contest? So let's let these lineups load. Hop over to users, 20 entries, sort by sim ROI. So good news right there. Very high sim ROI, about 40% here. There's one outlier, really, really high sim ROI, but outside of that, so outside of our people entering the same lineup 150 or 20 times, you know, highest sim ROIs are in like the 50 percentages here, a couple of outliers, but considering they're at 40%, I think that is a very, very strong start. So let's see some of the key differences here. Pretty high average salary. Seems fine. Seems good sim ROI. Average dupes of 34 and sim average score of 93.7. So, so I don't think we're going to learn a lot more here, honestly, in the post-contest sim. You know, this is probably an example of somebody doing something really good and somebody more to learn from than to improve on here. So all in all, very, very strong start and liking what I'm seeing. Let's see what build they used. They used this script build to fill their lineups. So let's hop over there. I'm assuming base is just like a default. You know, they're running the SaberSim defaults and just kind of seeing what the output is. I think that's good, right? You do some research. They're basically saying, okay, you know, if I were to just trust the Sims, you know, kind of what are we getting? And then they come in here, they make their adjustments. They have something to compare against is what I was looking for there. All right. So no filters, no rules, default minimum salary, 2K lineups. So just one small thing. This defaults to 2,000 just because it could take some time to get to 5,000. If you have the time, I would increase the number of lineups to 5,000 just so you have more optionality there. So that's just a small note. No lineup filters. Looks like they X'd Tua in the captain spot. Pretty interesting. I don't know how they did this. the top 6 projected captains, which I don't know if I can like necessarily get behind that. And part of it here, right, is you and his ownership is like 19%. So like across our pool, we're saying like, hey, Josh Allen is a really good, really strong captain, right? Same thing for Hill. The X Tua, we're matching on H, and we're matching on Waddle, we're matching on Cook, right? So to focus, 261 entries on captains who are showing up in your pool sub 4% of the time feels aggressive. So just kind of be aware of that. And then also you it looks like he bumped Allen like kind of a lot. So like we come in here, let's look at the flex before the multipliers. So like bumps Allen, 3 points, that's like 15% increase, 20% projection increase to Tyreek Hill, 10 to 15% increase to Waddle, but then fades all of these players in the captain. I don't know exactly how that happened, but it seems pretty weird. It almost seems unintentional though, which is also really weird. Because they don't have any min or max exposures for these players. So I don't know how that happened. So interesting. But all in all, I would just make sure you're making a conscious decision about this. So I would say just be careful, and if you're okay with this, then that's all right. And your post contest sims seem to be in agreement that this is an okay strategy. So just some notes there, some thoughts, right? Other than that, pretty hands off. I will say, I don't know where these projection adjustments came from. Some of them are a little aggressive. I would say you should make sure you are logging these and tracking them, right? And if you are, then that should give you a pretty good idea of like, hey, are my adjustments useful or are they not, right? So this is something I'll do. I will track all of my adjustments for week 1, for instance. I write them all down and then I go back and I grade them. And I'm like, okay, am I right more than I'm wrong? Am I like 50-50? And is this a waste of my time? Or am I actually providing value, right? And that's a little bit subjective, but I think it's good to have some accountability. That way you don't end up hurting your own lineup. So just be a little careful. I would highly recommend tracking this. But other than that, really good stuff, right? Really strong sim ROIs, really strong, like the dupe to sim average score ratio looked really good. So I'd say you're doing a lot of the right things. Be careful with some of these adjustments. Be aware of the decisions that you're making and the stands that you're taking, because these are all really big stands against some of the highest owned captains. And if you do that, I think you're going to be okay. But good stuff. All right. Next person up is going to be AK. So let's get AK up on the screen. And we will jump into our next review. All right. Think we should be good here. Let me check one thing. Having trouble finding AK's builds. So let's try one other thing here. Have an idea. And we'll get AK up. And we'll get this review rolling. Okay, boom. Think we're good now. All right, so we got AK pulled up for the Buffalo Miami showdown, starting the contest tab, as always. All right, contest selection looks solid, right? Nice balance here between your single entries and 3 maxes. And then more importantly, they're like, hey, you know, I want to stay under a certain bankroll number. Let me just put 10 entries instead of 20 into the $1, right? I think that's perfect, right? So balancing that out, throwing one in the $3 as well, taking a shot on something with a little bit bigger prizes. I like it. I think it's good. So all in all, good contest selection. Jump into the quarter. Hop over to users, entries 20, sort by sim ROI. So good news, right? Another person here, sim ROI in like the 30% range. And we talked about, you know, the sim ROIs that we're seeing are in like the 50-ish% range. So solid start there. Let's come in here and see what we can see. So salary looks fine. Average dupes is like a little high, right? So the person that was closer to 50%, they had a similar same average score, but their average dupes was like closer to 40, and this is closer to 80, right? So I would say we could probably do some stuff to lower dupes a little bit, and that should help us to get a little higher sim ROI. So we'll talk about that in a build. Let's see. So it looks like they use these studied snaps build here. All right. So a couple adjustments, right? Right off the bat, minimum salary 0, max salary 49.9. So they're basically saying, hey, I don't want to play max salary lineups. I think that is one good way to avoid duplication, right? So good stuff there. No filters or rules, no lineup filters, using single game saber score, good sorting metric. No min or max exposures in the captain. X'd Tyler Bass, not 100% sure. Or X the number of players here, right? So this is kind of the same as like the opposite side here, where it's like, hey, you know, I'm going to boost player projections. You should actually be doing the same thing for this, even though it's the opposite, right? Hey, I'm taking players out of the player pool. Well, you should be tracking those and making sure, like, hey, you know, was this actually a good idea? Because, like, you know, I think Jonnu Smith was like actually like really key to the slate, right? Like 11.3 points at like a pretty low salary. He ended up being like pretty good. But that's just one example, right? Like, are you right more than you're wrong? And I think it's just good to have that peace of mind saying like, okay, I am making good choices in these decisions, or like, okay, maybe I could make good choices like 80% of the time, but you know, I'm going a little bit too far with it, right? Like one thing I learned doing this myself was I was adjusting projections a little too far, where like maybe I had imagine like the centerpiece right, but like I was adjusting projections for like the dominoes that fall when that happens, and I was getting a little bit off track. So it's like I just kind of brought it back, like, okay, I just need to focus on like this one domino, and my accuracy is like a little bit better when I do that. So think about that when you're making some of these changes. But that'd be one big thing I would say. And then aside from that, as far as what we can do for duplication. So I'm pretty sure some of the most popular lineups on this slate were going to be Miami 4-2s and Miami 5-1s. Interesting. So the way I saw that was by like running a cash build, and that's why I think running cash builds can be beneficial, is it gives you a sense of like what the most common lineup constructions may look like. So the only thing I might have done here is like run a cash build and like maybe max exposed my Miami 5-1s to the pool exposure, since I knew those were going to be popular. And then it looks like the 4-2s were already at about that range, but just trying to do anything you can to be like a little bit different in your lineups could go a long way, right? So average dupes of 80, if we bring that number down, it could be beneficial. Another option is maybe lowering minimum salary even lower. You can set a geometric mean rule since you're on the standard plan, right? I would be a little bit more careful with a rule, a little bit looser, just because it gets applied to all of your lineups. You're not like filtering based on that. So those are some things that I would consider. But in order of magnitude, I would start with something not as aggressive, such as like the stack types. And then second is you could do a geometric mean rule. And then third is you could decide to lower your max salary a couple 100 points lower, right? So those are probably the order that I would take them, and then see if your dupes start to drop and which method you're using, or even if you're combining them to get to a lower number of dupes. So those are things that I would be trying to implement going forward. But all in all, good, solid stuff here. Good sim ROI, and definitely on the right track. All right. Very, very good there. Next up is going to be eight game here. Let's get 8 game up on the screen. And we will keep things rolling. All right. And let's hop back to yesterday's showdown. We'll keep the same trend here. All right. Loading up now. Going to start in the contest tab as always. And let's see what they're playing. So contest selection looks really, really good, right? We like this. Playing a good balance of single entries and 3 maxes, even getting into some of these $15 single entries. So a little bit heavier on the single entry, which I think is fine, right? Throwing 1 entry into the Millie Maker, also cool, but jamming all these lower stakes as well, right? So very, very strong contest selection here. Happy with what we're seeing. Stick with the theme here and go to the quarter jukebox. Go to users. So they told me their name was Ugly Lovely. All right. So about neutral ROI here, right? So some of the other people we looked at, I think it was like 50%, 30%. Now we're looking at 0%. So some room for improvement here, but this is good, right? We've been comparing to other users in the same contest. We're getting some ideas about what's good, what's not. This player is playing a little bit differently, right? They're shooting a little bit more for some of these unique lineups with 18 average dupes, 2 unique lineups, 6 under 5. So all these look good, but I think what's happening is they're maybe sacrificing a little too much sim average score to get here, right? So what we can do is we can go and look and zone in on their lineups and see how they're actually grading. And then we just re-added this this sorting option to sort your lineups. So this had gone away due to a bug, but it is back now, which is great. So I want to filter for Ugly Lovely here, come in and sort by sim ROI. I actually want to look at the worst sim ROI lineups first. So show me the negative ones at the top and then let them get higher as we go down, because we kind of want to focus on, hey, what lineups are grading out bad and what can we do about them, right? So let's let this load a minute. Let's try again. Seemed like the builder didn't like it when I did that. All right, let's try and get out of this contest tab. And then let's go back, because I did want to look at their lineups. Quarter. Okay, users filtered. Okay, good. Now we're seeing their lineups. Perfect. So these don't look sorted correctly. They look sorted by rank. So I'm going to try and see if we can sort them by sim ROI. But even if they don't, we could probably just, it's only 20 lineups. We could just scroll through here and check some of them out. So let's just start with these two lineups that are like in our field of view as it is. So these lineups are actually like pretty close to each other with like one key distinction, right? So both lineups, one of them duped 8 times, one of them duped 7. One of them 49.9 salary, one of them 49.5. But the difference is one of them is projected for 89.6 and one of them is projected for 85.2. So what the builder is saying is like, hey, you can play a lineup projected for 89.6. If it's duped around 8 times, that's really good. But if you're going to play this lineup duped around 8 times, don't play it if the projected score is like 4 points lower. Like if you're going to go and play a lineup projected for 4 points lower, I bet you that lineup ends up needing to be closer to unique, right? And it actually like gives you these guidelines as to, what lineups, where a lineup's drop off point is as far as what it needs to be or what it needed to be in order to be sim ROI positive. So, that was just a quick example, like looking at 2 lineups, but that's basically the research that I would recommend doing if you're not grading out well, is like go and look at your lineups and compare what a positive sim ROI lineup looks like to a negative. And then you're going to find, these breaking points in the sim ROI, and then you're going to be able to identify those and use that in future builds, right? Like the projected scores are going to change, of course, based on the game, based on the totals, based on the players. But you're going to start to get this sense of like, okay, what do I need to be balancing? how far do I go? Things like that. So having a little bit trouble loading this, but I'm glad we were able to get a quick example in. Now let's go to the build. So lineups 47.5 to 49.9. I prefer to lower the minimum rather than raise it, right? I think the minimum starts at 45,000. So they've increased it here to 47.5. I mean, maybe it was like a slate specific thing, but I usually lower it to 40,000. I know people who lower it to like 0. And like, for instance, on like Monday night slate with the Christian McCaffrey news and Jordan Mason, I was playing a ton of like 42,000 salary, 43,000 salary, 44,000 salary. So, those lineups do come up, and you're just kind of blocking yourself out. And they also help with uniqueness too, right? Which is obviously what we're trying to achieve. So I would probably rethink the minimum salary here. 2 filters, see what we got. Just wanted to get rid of players who are out. And then projection greater than 5 in the captain. I think that's good. I do something similar. So just getting rid of like some of the lowest owned captains to get rid of like some of the just, show some of the longest shots out there, right? So I think it's okay to do that. Multiple player groups here. So if Tua captain, then use 2 pass catchers, like a correlation type rule. No more than 1 running back from Miami. No more than 1 running back from Buffalo. No more than 1 tight end from Miami. So a lot of correlation type rules. I think that's okay in general. I will say that if you're finding them to be useful, I think that's fine. The correlations will also, the natural in-game correlation, will, if it's wrong to play Achane and Jeff Wilson Jr. together, the builder's going to figure that out in the play-by-play sim. But if you don't want it for sure, I think it is better to set it as a rule. So I just kind of want to say like, hey, like the builder knows only to do this if it works out in the sim, and maybe it works out, 3% of the time. So maybe you do end up with like a handful of lineups with that construction. It's up to you whether or not you want to just write it off from the beginning or you're actually okay with it, right? So that's a personal choice. I think the rules, I don't think there's anything wrong with them. So I would say if you are happy with it, keep doing it. Looks like they used SaberSim old here because I see risk adjusted ROI. So I think that's okay. Let's go to flex. Not sure where all these projection adjustments came from. I'm going to assume they're coming from a good place. So, if you're finding value in doing these, then, great. That's up to you. But all in all, I think what happened is you were shooting for very unique lineups and you just ended up playing too many that were too low projected. So do some of that research that like we kind of showed about like finding those break off points in sim ROI and being a little bit more conscious of them in future builds. But I think if you try to play a little bit higher sim average score lineups, you'll end up being pretty okay here. And then the other thing, right, is that you have so many custom projections that if these disagree with SaberSim, then that can also have an effect on your sim ROIs, because we're going to be using the SaberSim baseline projections to grade the sim ROIs. So, maybe you think, Jalen Waddle is projected for 16.5, but we think it's 14.9. Well, there are some sim average score points right there that aren't going in your favor, right? Same thing for Josh Allen. Same thing for, some of these other big differences, right? Dolphins D, Jeff Wilson Jr., right? All of these come into play. So the bigger changes in your custom projections, the more wary you should be of the contest sim results, in my opinion. But good review. I think there's going to be some useful information in there for 8 game. So happy we were able to go over that. Next up here, it's going to be Raf. And let's get this up on the screen. All right. Let's go to Buffalo, Miami. Pulling up the build now. Going to jump over to the contest tab. Contest selection, very, very strong. Like what I'm seeing here. Let's see. Split this up into single entry 3 max build, 20 plus max build. I think that's good. Let's jump into the quarter. See how they grade it out compared to their fellow SaberSim users here. All right. Users. Entries 20. Sim ROI. So 21% positive Sim ROI here. Not bad at all. Like we said, highest was in like the 50 percentages. This one's kind of interesting, right? 28 average dupes, 92.9 sim average score. This actually looks really good. Average salary is a little bit low, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. I'm a little curious why they graded out so bad, right? Like this set is very, very similar to this other person here, like DraftKings EAD. So Raf has 28 average dupes. They have 27. No uniques. Both have no uniques. Both have 1 under 5. Raf's sim average score 92.9. Their sim average score 93.4. So just about like 0.5% or half a point here, but a pretty noticeable difference in sim ROI of about like 30-ish%. So kind of surprising there. Let's see if we can look at Raf's lineups. And I'm not going to try and resort because it just takes too long querying all these lineups and stuff. I'm just going to sort through these as they are shown. Eight dupes, 36. $88, $20. Interesting. So this is like a pretty good example, right? So like you see this lineup, 87.6 projection. Raf said probably going to end up falling somewhere in the middle this week. Yeah, you definitely did. I don't know why you did. Oh, there's a message for that. I decided to try something a little different this time around. Aim to not really cut the dupes and just jam what the sim gave me as the potential highest ROI/scoring lineups just based on other showdowns. It's okay to try stuff, right? It's okay to mess around with it. So I don't mind that at all. But I think like here you can see, right? Projection 87.6, dupes 5, sim ROI 36.4. And then we see the top lineup, projected score 86.4, slightly lower, dupes 36, negative 4.5%. This actually isn't even that bad, negative ROI percent wise, for the amount of dupes that it assumes here. But we could see like those differences, right, in the lineups. $92 projected score, 6 dupes, 69% sim ROI. This is a really good And then also, right, this is Buffalo stack, as opposed to like the Miami 4-2s, the Miami 5-1s, right? So like it's that kind of outcome that we're talking about, right? Even this one, right? 49-3, higher salary, 95 projection, and 7 dupes. Like, this is an awesome lineup. I don't know how you got here, right? Because this is like Miami 4-2. These can be a little bit harder to get to. Maybe it's like, hey, this one has like the double running back, right? And maybe people are setting rules like 8-game is where like I only want to use one running back. So when you do play 2 running backs, you do get these more unique lineups. And the other interesting thing, right, is that this one even has some negative correlation. It's Achane and Wilson against the Bills D. So not only is it like double running back, but it's like double running back against opposing defense, right? So there are ways to get more unique here, and this lineup didn't do all that bad, right? It's pretty interesting. So it's cool to come in here and see some of these constructions that you get, and that they end up grading out so well in the post-contest sim. But that's kind of the research. I just wanted to take a little bit of a look here and see what was going on there. Let's jump into this 20 max. So interesting, right? They just cut max salary. Like, you know what? I don't want to play anything over 49.5. Let's just get rid of it. Two uniques. I think that's okay. ROI greater than 0 for all of their contest sims. No filters, no rules. Sounded like Ralph said, I just kind of let it ride on what we were looking at, and I was pretty okay with whatever it was going to come back as. So not sure why the exposures aren't updating, but it seems like they were pretty hands-off in general here. Not seeing any Minimax exposures. One small adjustment to Jason Sanders. I think it's okay to be a little opinionated. Basically, almost matching ownership anyways. Nothing in stack types, team stacks, all that stuff. So we can see, right, pretty hands-off approach, still positive sim ROI. Couple places that they could try some stuff different, but all in all, really good contest selection. So liking what I'm seeing here as well. But all right, that was our last person signed up for today. And this is our last show of the week. If anybody likes this content and wants to sign up, wants to get their main slate reviewed on Monday here, that'll be our next show. Drop your DK username in the Office Hours channel in Discord, and I will add you to the queue. But until Monday, everybody, take care. Good luck. I'll see you all. Thanks. Bye.